Welcome to Listening to Paint Tribe with Mike and Dan, a podcast about the art and hobby of miniature painting. I'm Mike, and thank you for joining us on our continued quest to become better, braver, happier painters. We are stoked today to have not just one, but two special guests. Two guys we met at Adepticon right outside the concession stands, each a talented painter in their own right and wonderful content creator. Even better is that they combine their powers to form the podcast Painting Bravely. So please welcome Brent from Goobertown Hobbies and Casey from eBay Miniature Rescues. Gentlemen, thank you for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Absolutely.
Oh man, it's kind of funny. Adepticon was that's probably the largest show I've ever been to. And so just kind of walking around going, oh, I recognize that person. I recognize that person. And like trying to get up courage to talk to people. I appreciate you guys were so welcoming and nice when I was kind of like, hey, I know you guys want to be on a show, so I appreciate that, guys. Thank you so much.
Oh, there's a lot of familiar faces wandering around at Adepticon, but my experience has been that everyone's pretty friendly there. So yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I haven't met any hobby jerks really, like as far as content creators or every so often. I think those are like reserved more for like inside the heated gaming rooms,
Possibly, but I think just once you get people to leave their houses and be in a public space, that helps a lot too, I think.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
A little bit of accountability in groups.
Now there might be somebody across the room who sees you and recognizes you and starts typing out a mean comment, but they're not going to say it to your face like that. So it's all good.
Yeah.
All good.
Fair enough. So our listeners probably know you already. You're both pretty well known. But would you guys mind giving a little bit of your hobby origin story, how all this crazy miniature painting started for you? Why don't we start with you, Brent?
Okay. So the way I tell my story is that it started with the Star Wars customizable card game. That's my nerd origin story. And when I was about 12 years old, I moved to a new town, and the kids in the new town weren't playing that nerd game. They were playing a different nerd game. So that's when I got into Warhammer. And so played Warhammer Fantasy and 40K in middle school and some high school. Wandered off for college in a little while after, and then came back to it right around age 30 and have been in the miniature painting wargaming sphere ever since.
Nice. Casey, how about you?
Yeah, I suppose mine's a bit of a similar story. Grew up playing collectible card games in the 90s. Then I had friends that had older brothers that were like, no, you need to check out this Warhammer thing, So I kind of got into it in that way, the older brothers teaching us how to play, showing us how to paint. Had one local hobby shop that had some supplies. So I did that for a couple of years and had a lot of fun and quit for a long time. And then when Age of Sigmar was starting, those things were coming out and just kind of brought me back in. So yeah, as soon as that was 2015. So I've been back since then.
Yeah, your hobby story is very similar to mine because I took mine. I took a long period of time off after high school, and then the Stormcast are what got me back. Because they look to me that my favorite movie is Excalibur, and they look to me a lot like the Mordred armor in that, and I've always loved that kind of look. Although they are chunky, I know that they're not perfect.
You see my last video?
Yeah, I did. Okay. I watch them. While I have a lot going on, I do try to watch and listen. I don't watch as much as I listen, because I try to combine things like paint and so. Yes, no, I did. I watched your last video. I watched a tour of a plastic factory and a paint factory, and so I know what's going on.
Yeah, I wasn't exactly nice about the original Stormcast. The funny thing is, like, even now I have this like kind of nostalgia for them because it was really what kind of got me back in. I saw what was coming out, and I was like, man, that's not the Warhammer I remember. And I never played fantasy. I was only ever into 40K. Um, and so it they definitely brought me back in. So like I appreciate them for that fact, but seeing them through the lens of almost a decade now, since they've come out, it's like, yeah, they could have done some things differently, because it does, like, the bulky armor does remind you of things like Excalibur, and just people in these huge sets of armor and stuff. And so in that video, I wanted to try and figure out those issues for myself, just so I would like them even more now. you know
Well, the ones that really sold me were the Retributors with the long
oh
spears.
yeah,
The
yeah.
ones with that kind of, they have the almost Saxon style helmet.
Hmm.
And I was kind of like, oh, I'm in. I'm
Yeah,
in.
yeah,
And
actually,
then
it's funny, I think those are probably the better models in that early set too.
agreed.
Yeah,
Easily. The Retributors were by far the not the push fit, but the separate put together arm, like the
yeah,
ones that
yeah,
posable, were by far, yeah, absolutely. Although the Prosecutors are pretty cool, the guys with the wings.
yeah. Yeah, they still feel more like a proper scale. The wings give them this, like, nice gravitas to them, although they are a huge pain to push around on the table
I can imagine they probably fall over all the time.
all the time. You have to wait, and they're leaning, and it's like they look so cool, and then trying to, like, get them into, like, coherency and stuff, like, to keep them a couple inches apart even, is like, well, now I got to twist this one so the wings don't hit and they don't fall over. Yeah.
Nice, nice. And it's funny because I've never played, so those are gamer things.
Yeah. From a painting perspective, like, those wings are awesome.
Although I don't know about you, but I broke them so many times, and then the Lord
Yes.
Relictor, every time for some odd reason I would reach over him and
Oh
then
yeah.
come back with him stuck in my arm
Yes.
because he's so spiky.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's
yeah.
tall and spiky. Yeah.
Oh, I'm a hobby nightmare. If you guys listen to there's a little bit of it in the Aaron Lovejoy one where he talks about an injury that he had, but yeah, I am. I'm Mr. Put the knife in my hand. I did it in Dan and I took a Roman Laplot 3-day camp. Somebody borrowed my tools and just threw them back in my book bag, and I didn't look, and I reached into my book bag and came out with the
Oh,
hobby knife under my
Oh
nail.
yeah.
oh,
Oh. Oh.
that's worse than what I thought you were gonna say.
Yeah.
And like we were in like the second row, like right in the line with Roman, and like literally that's the noise he made. Would you
Yeah.
like to take a break? And I'm like, I think that's a
Yeah.
good idea.
Just a minute, yeah.
I think you should take a break. Yep, absolutely. That's neither here nor there. So now this podcast is turning into the painful side of the hobby. On a brighter note, and whoever wants to go first on this, what made you guys decide to start doing at least separately your content? Like, what prompted you to create a YouTube channel?
I just wanted to share stuff that I'd been working on in the same way that anybody else shares on Facebook or Instagram or any of the other social media things. And just the one I wanted to share on was YouTube. And so I decided that's what I was going to do. For years previous, whenever I was doing a project or something, refinishing furniture, building magnetic painting handles, whatever it was, I was always like, I want to share this with people. This is pretty cool. This seems fun. And I was like, someday I'm going to start a blog, or I'm going to learn how to post on Reddit, or like I want to share this. And eventually I just decided, I want to share this on YouTube. And then I decided, I'm going to do this right. And so I bought myself a camera, and eventually bought myself a microphone, and started making YouTube videos.
Yeah, mine's a different type of story, I suppose. I was, getting back into painting, just kind of having fun, and I wanted to record, I guess, my painting experience and keep track of the colors and the processes that I was using. So when I started on YouTube, I had no intention of actually doing YouTube in any capacity. I was using my iPhone 4S or something at the time. Like, I had a little arm that, you know, had the iPhone that clipped on, a little light. And I just kind of went for it. And some of it, you know, it was like a little bit of like, oh, you know, you can buy this on eBay, you can do this on eBay. More just to have it, I guess. And you know, it turned out that people liked it. So I decided, yeah, okay, I'll try and make this more of a thing, and I'll just post more. So it became a just a weird. It just happened, I guess, and I ended up posting weekly videos for like 3 years in a row. So
That's yeah. I mean, that's well, weekly is impressive to begin with. So you guys doing that is like I bow to you because editing audio it takes me like a month to do. Not that
right.
bad, but it takes forever. But that I guess it kind of leads me to this. Brent, you have 116 videos. Casey 210.
Do I? Cool.
How how do you guys like keep it fresh? Like, how do
Where do you
you
find that number? That's good to know. Cool. Thanks.
just search your name when if you search Goobertown Hobbies, it'll come up in YouTube. It'll say how many subscribers you have and how many videos.
Learn something new every day. All right. What was your question?
That well, how do you keep it with so many videos already under your belt? How do you blah. All right, I'll try that again. With so many videos under your belt, how do you keep the content fresh and generate kind of new ideas? So just as a side note, you have 83 episodes of your podcast too. So
The podcast is a bit harder, but
Yeah.
for mini painting actually lends itself in a lot of really good ways to outputting content. So we all have more than 116 miniatures that we have painted or would like to paint someday. And so at the very basic level, if you're just like, I'm making a video about painting this, making a video about painting that's a baseline. But from there are all the different techniques, there's all the different hobby tools, all the different hobby companies. And just as you go, you get excited about different things and you're like, okay, I want to talk about this, want to talk about that. So coming up with ideas is not the problem at all. I think anybody who really gets into this has a list of dozens and dozens of ideas that they just haven't had time to execute yet. So ideas for videos is not hard. It's a little bit harder to keep it fresh and stuff that people haven't seen before. But even then, coming up with ideas is much faster than filming a video, editing a video, painting some miniatures really nicely, making a thumbnail. I've found that the rate of topic generation just naturally is much faster than the rate of ability to produce a video. So that's in some ways that's the easy part. That's the fun part. Is like, oh, I could do, it just comes to you like, oh, I could do a video about this. Boom, easy. Yeah.
nice, excellent. So, and do you like troll eBay, Casey, just to see like, all right, where is this? Is there a wow? That's a shitty paint job. I need to buy that.
Oh yeah, almost every day actually. I've got notifications that get sent to my email daily, so I wake up and there's a nice 10 set of emails of different search terms that I go through, just so I can get the first jump on a lot of things. But yeah, I mean, I'm always looking for, you know, whatever stands out the most, I guess. Because if I can put something that's just gnarly in a thumbnail, I know that's gonna work. And I mean, eBay produces daily, like I said. So yeah, like coming up with new video ideas and topics, like I generally don't think about it too hard because that thing will pop up and I'll buy it, or it'll just manifest itself, right? Like I have plenty of stuff now that I have purchased that just I'll look at in the drawer and go, okay, today is the day I'm painting this, you know, whatever it is. So yeah, eBay is a good source. What?
You just reminded me. So you have obviously a lot of just gnarly half-finished paint jobs, but I
Yeah,
also remember, and there's also some of like somebody tried, but they weren't really up to the task, and there's some that like
sure.
somebody just didn't finish and abandoned. But do you remember you found this artist like a year or so back where there was an
Mhm.
eBay seller who was selling a bunch of used stuff. I think they just bought lots from
Yes.
various hobbyists, and they were breaking them down and selling lots. And within this seller's catalog, you could like identify a couple of artists just by their style. And there was
Mhm.
there was one, and I'm going to call him an artist. It was who, and when I say artist, I mean an extremely bad painter, but in the funniest possible way. And
Yeah.
so I'm remembering a particular, I think it was like a guardsman that had been
Yes.
modified to sit on a Space Marine bike,
Mhm.
and everything about it was hilarious in the way that some of those memes of like the googly eye paint job, like
Mhm.
the Space Marine that's caked in flesh color, and then just two absolutely googly staring eyes are drawn on it. Like you found the source of that. You found, like, if not that exact individual, you found like their brother or something, like their
Yeah.
little brother.
Definitely a relative of some sort. And I've bought from this person. I wish I could remember their eBay store name, although I don't know if I want to give out that information.
No, it's a
That's
stash.
mine. That's
Yeah.
mine. But I actually I bought from that guy several times, and I've always sent him a message with each purchase, and I'm like, can you please give me any information about this? Like, where did this come from? What is the backstory? Because I mean, it's almost like somebody went and painted meme Marines on purpose. And I mean, I've seen those videos. I've always wanted to do this. Like, just take perfectly good models and make them the most meme that you can. But of
Hmm.
course, these are done for me, and I haven't had a chance to do a lot of them on the channel yet. But that is a unique source for sure. There's weird conversions and exactly those googly eyes on every single model.
So this is
It's amazing.
yeah, this is a forbidden pleasure for us because we try to be super positive and encouraging, and it is awesome that somebody got their minis painted, and I'm
Yeah.
sorry that they decided that they needed to sell them for whatever reason. But at the same time, I love to make fun of that particular artist because they're funny, they're hilarious to look at, and I feel bad about it, but I'm gonna give myself that guilty pleasure.
That one thing.
They're hilariously bad, and you're giving joy to the world, and I'm hoping that we're laughing with you, but
I mean,
it's really funny. It's
I
really
I
funny.
choose to think so because I go back in my own catalog of models, right? Like I started, like I said in the 90s painting Eldar models, so almost all metal. Um, and I mean, I didn't know how to paint. I had a standard Citadel brush and like a handful of paints. So most of those models still look like that. It's not that far off.
Yeah,
So
but
12-year-old me is
there's
that guy.
there are thousands, there are millions of models out in the world that are painted by somebody who's just learning, and you're like, oh, that's not very good, but they're getting there, and I hope they had fun doing it. But every once in a
Mhm.
while, you find one that's just, it makes you crack up. You're just like, oh man, I don't know what happened there, but I love it. Like there's something, they found something. There's something really
Yeah.
special about the way in which this is bad, and I hope they got as much joy out of it as we do.
Looking at, my
As we
God, did they use latex paint? What? Like,
Oh man.
How
Oh,
did you
I've
do this?
I've definitely run into stuff like that. Like I don't know what substance you put on this model. It's not coming off. Like all sorts of different crazy things. Like I got Play-Doh one time as a gap filler. That was a good one.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
You just never know. Like people are they got to use their ingenuity somewhere. They fix the problems at hand, and you never know what that's going to be sometimes.
oh, you would totally appreciate this. So, I have somebody that I do commissions for, and originally all they did was use every single model that they had was painted with Army Painter gunmetal,
Hmm.
and I'm pretty sure they just dipped them in the gunmetal. And then if something broke, they would take blue tack and try to recreate, like, so if they've lost an arm,
Oh.
they would literally take blue tack and super glue the blue tack to the spot and basically just like try to size it out and then put like 10 coats of paint over it.
Oh wow.
And so this is a neighbor of mine, and when I stripped those the first time, I was astonished. I was like, what is that substance floating in the IPA? And I'm like, holy crap, that's blue tack. Where was the blue tack on this? And then I
holding that arm on, yeah. It's
oh no,
hanging
What
on.
happened to his left arm?
it was the arm.
Yeah.
Like
Incredible.
yeah, and actually,
Wow.
it's funny because that's the first time I was like, "Oh, he's got to sell these on eBay for the eBay miniature rescues because these are something else." Yeah, and so basically, what would happen is we have another person in the neighborhood who prints, and he would take all of the misprints and basically use them for Dungeons and Dragons and Blood Bowl and stuff like that. And so if there was like anything was filled in with blue tack, I'm pretty sure that he used Gorilla Glue a few times in just random places because I'd look at it and I'm like, well, that's foamy on there. And then he had a group that he hired, a group of industry hired like his friends' kids to do, and they left a bottle of plastic glue open near the models.
Oh yeah.
And so they're all like pitted and textured and stuff like that. And I'm like, I'm going to do my best to paint these, but you know, your Eldar Blood Bowl team looks a little Swiss cheesy there, guy. And that plastic doesn't sand right. Once that resets after that, the fumes, I don't know, it's different than using the direct paint because they don't sand right at all. So yeah, hopefully my neighbor doesn't listen to this, but
Well, if he does, then I leave my P.O. box in the description box, and I'm
right.
happy to take whatever you have.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and that's true. I'll have to send you all of my when I looked at because I started Rogue Trader 1, that was my first box, was the Marines, right? And I have this one dude that I thought was the bee's knees. Like, you know, if they would have been a Golden Demon back in 90, I would have been like, yeah, I'm gonna go, you know.
Yeah.
I look at it now and I can't stop laughing. And it's funny, it's so bad, and I'm still so proud of it. Like I'm still like I tried freehand. I even made a sling out of tissue paper for the guy. I was like back then I was so brave. Why am I a chicken shit now? You know, when it comes to painting.
I mean, that's seriously, it's why I tell people never to go back and repaint your first models. Like, I know that I'm a huge, I push stripping models and fixing and doing all this stuff, but it's like seeing that from when you started, especially, and being able to compare that to where you are now and how you do things and the way you think about things is so important.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we've talked about the video side about it. Let's talk about the podcast side of it. How did you guys get together to decide, to combine your superpowers and move forward with this podcast, Painting Bravely?
Well, I think I came to Brent, I mean, it was a few years ago now, and just kind of threw out the idea. We were already kind of talking pretty often, because we had basically met each other online, just from doing videos, but like really early on.
Yes.
We had, I don't know, 10 videos a piece maybe. No subscribers.
Yeah, very early on. Like I remember the day I found your channel. I think you had 100 subscribers on YouTube. I had 75 subscribers on YouTube. And I was like, I'm talking to this big YouTuber, but I'm like, I'll leave him a comment and let him know that I'm painting goblins too, and be like, I'm gonna use your yellow goblin cloaks. I think that looks really cool. I'm gonna do that on some of my minis. And so we actually met each other just as YouTube people very early on, and our channels both got a little bit of luck, and both of our channels grew quite nicely, and it became internet friends. And Casey came to me at some point and said, let's make a podcast, and we did, and now still making a podcast, still friends, and all is good.
That's excellent. And I have actually some questions. So, for the podcast, we do have a Patreon, and what we use that for is to sponsor painting contests. And so we've sponsored the Kill Team Opens painting contest this year. We're attempting to do a youth award at both ReaperCon and Nova Open because Dan goes to Nova and I go to Reaper. And so we asked, we have a few Patreons that we said, hey, we're going to talk with Brent and Casey. So we got a couple of questions for you guys from them. The first one is from Dev, Raggedy Pants. And that is, I'm just starting to get this joke now as I was going through more, but how much is too much for a kobold?
I don't know. I don't know if you could have enough. Like, because you can go pretty swole with a kobold.
A dollar amount? Are we talking how much should a kobold cost?
How much body or how much cost?
Let's go with cost, because I think that might be what he's alluding to.
Probably that makes more sense.
Yeah, the story here is last year WizKids came out with this line of minis called Frameworks. It is plastic polystyrene sprue minis officially licensed for D&D creatures and characters. And one of the boxes that they came out with was a sprue for kobolds. And so if you spend $50 at your local hobby shop, you can get a box from WizKids that's plastic models of kobolds. And you open up that box, and there are 7 almost empty sprues in there from which you can construct 7 very small kobolds. And they are properly sized for D&D. Like in the monster manual, a kobold is a small-sized creature, and like if anything, they're even like a little bit bigger than other WizKids kobolds, but still, it's $50 for 7 very small models. Yeah. There's some customization, but not enough for that price. and so we had realistically like a couple of podcasts where all we did was complain about that, and we also I also made a couple of YouTube videos about this Frameworks line. And the first video I made was about some of their hero characters, which are $15 to make a human warrior or an elf ranger or whatever the case is. And $15 is a little bit much, but there's some customization. They're okay. They're all right. Get your plastic D&D minis out. And I'm a big proponent of trying to get new people into the hobby. So if there's just some pen and paper D&D players out there, or people playing with chits or pre-painted minis, if there is a way to coax them into giving mini painting and model building a try, that's big news for me. That's a big deal. So I was really excited about this Frameworks line. It's like, okay, the heroes are all right, a little expensive, but they're all right. Maybe you get some of your D&D buddies into painting minis. And then I got a sample of the kobolds, and it was $50 for 7 of the tiniest little models you've ever seen.
They're like 15 millimeter.
And
it's not good.
I made like a 20-minute video where most of my dialogue was $50 for 7 kobolds.
Single-handedly killed that line of models.
My understanding is that the Frameworks line has not been selling very well. That's not my fault. Any honest reviewer would have an issue with $50 for 7 kobolds. But if you look at the YouTube views for the number of people who've even talked about the Framework line, 95% of them are from my channel. But no, I did, to answer your question, I have thought about it. Like, if you're a company and you are trying to sell models to consumers at a price that gets people to buy, but still, giving you a good profit margin so that you can make, make a pack of 7 goblins in the future. I was thinking about this. I think you could do a pack of 5 kobolds for $25. I think you could find a way to do $5 per kobold. I think it can be done. I think you need to design the sprues so that there's a little more, customization on them, and you have to really game it out. But that's the upper limit. That's where I draw the line on how much per kobold. Now, Casey, would you like to the size.
So we'll set it out. So Brent, $5 a kobold.
I think it can be done.
Yeah.
Inflation these days. I think we have to resign
With
ourselves
inflation.
to where a kobold costs $5. Yeah.
I think I'm on the $5 train for sure, because there are plenty of models that I am happy to buy, even used, for more than that, and bigger models too. So thinking about it, definitely $5 for a single kobold, and I mean you can even get ones that people 3D print. If you buy the STL for like 3, or buy the printed one for 5. Like those are pretty common. So that feels better, and especially with extras that come with it. Like if you got more candles, you got more bottles, you got extra stuff, then you're getting value for that. And I mean, it's not like, I don't know, that those 15 mil like kobolds. It's just 7 of them. I don't want to bring up old stuff, but it's pretty bad.
We thought it was going to be a meme. Like I really thought that there were just going to be meme images all over the internet of $50 for 7 blanks was just going to be something that got repeated throughout this industry and many more.
Right. Well, and you wonder too, because were they looking at the Games Workshop pricing model? Was that because that's kind of, although 7 kobolds, that would probably be $80 for Games Workshop.
Well, so for Games Workshop does sell boxes of, I think at the time they were still selling boxes of 20 goblins. I think they might have found a way to reduce the goblin box size to 10 goblins in a box, but even by Games Workshop prices, it was still almost twice the price of what they would sell a small miniature for. It was, and the plastic from Frameworks isn't bad, but it's their first release, and they're clearly still working out some kinks. So the quality is not quite to Games Workshop level on those miniatures yet. So, oh well, they are coming out with a wave 2 of Frameworks, and hopefully they right the ship. I'll take a look for sure.
Yeah, I've always found the plastic on the WizKids stuff, and I thought I go through these process of okay, originally Mold Lines Games Workshop was bad, and putting those together. Then Weird came out with Malifaux. It was basically like Games Workshop, hold our beer, while we make even fiddlier models with worse mold lines in bad places. Then I found BattleTech and went, wow, these are the worst mold lines of all. And then I saw WizKids and went, damn it, somebody beat out BattleTech for the mold line awards.
Yeah. So WizKids does have a couple of different kinds of plastic. So they have their Nulzer's Marvelous Miniatures, I think, which is the PVC flexible plastic that single cast minis, single piece minis that have the mold lines. Frameworks was actually on a sprue, the same kind of plastic that you'd find from Games Workshop or Weird, and I don't know, the mold lines weren't terrible. They were sprue it was a different thing. It was a big step in a new type of miniatures for a D&D licensed product, and I was excited, and now I'm less excited, and it seems like the wind might have kind of gone out of the sails. But hey, they have a new wave of Frameworks D&D minis coming out, and maybe they get the magic back, and somebody else makes a review video about them.
Yeah, I hope that's it's very interesting how little did you know the impact you may or may not had, right?
I don't think I had a huge, I tell myself I didn't have a huge impact on that. I think well, it's hard to say. So D&D players are willing to spend a lot of money on quartz dice and mahogany DM screens and mahogany, dice trays and dice towers and all this stuff. And my philosophy is any hobby that you have, some people are going to try to put some of their disposable income into their hobby. And for something like D&D, for pen and paper RPGs, you don't need a lot. You need a player needs a rule book and a set of dice. That's kind of it. And so it seems like there's this need for players to have something to spend their money on, and a lot of companies have capitalized on the mahogany rosewood inlaid dice trays, which are just use the table. You can roll on the table. It's fine.
Don't fall off, Brent. Come on.
Dice towers, I really don't understand. I may never understand dice towers.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I didn't even understand what they were. Like the first time I saw them was the first time I went to ReaperCon a couple years ago, and I'm like, why is this dude selling these things that look like Castle Grayskull? Like, what the hell are these for?
Yeah.
And
so I don't want to poke too much fun. Like we have hobbies. We spend our disposable time on hobbies. We spend our disposable income on hobbies. And my understanding is like why dice towers exist is because people who play RPGs want to be spending some disposable income on their hobby. And so that's the best that the niche came up with is dice towers. And so there you go. But so I was excited, like, okay, good miniatures for D&D players. Let's go. Let's get this whole untapped market and really give them a reason to try mini painting and like double the size of this hobby. Like, yeah, let's go. And we're not there yet, but the more on ramps into the mini painting hobby, the better.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. All right. So the next Patreon question is, Brent, how do you like your eggs?
Ooh, that's a great question. I'm a scramble man. So recently I've been get a couple of pieces of bacon and get that in the pan, get that going. And while the bacon's starting to sizzle up, I'll mix 4 eggs with a little bit of skim milk, mix that up in a cup, and get the toast going in the background. And then once the bacon's looking pretty good, pour that into the pan, and in a couple of minutes, you have some open-faced sandwiches with eggs and bacon on top. That's been my go-to recently.
Nice. And Casey, I would imagine because you have smaller kids that your world is scrambled eggs.
You'd think so, actually. Both my 6-year-old and 2-year-old enjoy over hard. So, yeah,
nice.
Yeah,
very nice.
When I do scramble, because I prefer the scramble, but I do the Gordon Ramsay scramble, the soft scramble. So,
nice.
Yeah, you mix it in with butter or cream, and you slowly cook that, and just scrape it off the bottom of the pan, off the heat, put it back on. Those are some of the best eggs.
So you're more the French style as opposed to going for the country large curd style then.
Yeah. Because if you go the large curd like that, they tend to turn gray and they get funky, they get a little chewy. So yeah, gotta slow. Just like barbecuing, right? Low and slow.
Low and slow. Nice.
Yeah.
Excellent. And the other questions are actually ones that you guys had already answered. How did you start eBay Miniature Rescues? How did you start Goobertown? So those are already covered. So yes, all right.
All right.
Well, we can get back. Casey hasn't answered how large a kobold should be yet. So
there we go.
More than 15 millimeters, less than 32.
Now, what color should a kobold be?
Ooh,
oh yeah,
there you go.
That's a tough one.
That's a hot topic, right?
I like the dull orange. I think that's a good starting point. The dull orange kobolds, but
yeah. Like a dull orange, like in the stomach area, and then red on the back, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
very traditional, right?
Nice.
D&D traditional. Yeah.
I'll throw in there then. What color should an orc be? Because I've seen every color now at this point, and where do you guys land? Are you greenskins? Are you blue, red?
I think because I do paint a lot of orcs. I think the greenskin, the classic greenskin with some variation, is probably my favorite way to go. But a close second is painting the ultra fast red skinned orcs. and I do like red-skinned orcs. They just have a nice fire to them.
Right. And I feel like when the skin is red, there might be some more color. Like the red plays differently with other colors, sometimes better than green does. And it might just be where I am, like visually in my work right now. Maybe because I don't paint enough green. But yeah, I kind of lean with you there. I love that. I love the red skin orcs. What about you, Brent? Where are you landing?
So I am a green skin orc kind of person. I like to highlight up using more of a yellow green, not mint green, but more of a yellow green. Just actually for all of the times I paint green, I like to go towards yellow instead of to pastel green. But for orcs, I do like to try to get some pink in the armpits and elbows. So even like priming with pink and then putting green over top. Sometimes I do. I like that. Let's see what else here.
And you use pink to shade yellow too, right?
Oh, you saw that video?
Of
Yeah,
course.
yeah.
I've been all the
Goobertown yellow.
I do some homework.
Yeah, the shading yellow with like brownish orange is a good shade for yellow. And so if you prime a miniature pink and then spray over white and yellow on top, the yellow layering over the white gives you a nice yellow, and then yellow layering over pink gives you orange essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And that ends up looking pretty sweet.
Yeah, the models in your video look fantastic.
Thanks.
Definitely enjoyed looking at them.
But
you're both fantastic painters. I mean,
we're both fine painters. Thank you though.
Hey, we got a green dot there sitting next to you. The green circle from Golden Demon, right?
Yeah, that's true. I happened to get the little green dot this time.
Nice.
Not expecting that, but hey, I'll take it.
Heck yeah.
Yep. Dan actually got one too from a model he painted like 6 years ago and put nothing, no effort into it. And I rode the bottom shelf the entire time.
Oh yeah.
I was like, woohoo! That's not, my new painting commission studio is called Bottom Shelf Studios.
I like that. It's good.
We listened to your Adepticon episode there, and yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh no, it was such a lesson learned because it was a misplacement of time. I had 70 plus Blood Bowl miniatures to paint for commission, and other commission stuff, then the stuff I wanted to do for Demon, then other projects I wanted to work in, and I got overwhelmed. And so I misspent my time, did a quick finished a side project for the Resin Beast, which I wound up, I don't even know how many, I don't even think I spent 20 hours on that. Mm-hmm. And that placed in the, an honorable mention. And then I spent well over 100 hours on the Demon entry, and so it was, I probably had some sour grapes still at that point when we recorded that episode. But it was certainly a valuable lessons. I've learned in probably the last 3 months, I've learned more about myself as a painter than I have in the past. And so I'm just going to ride that, you know what I mean? Like it was an interesting experience for sure.
Yeah, Resin Beast looked fun. I mean, so for those of you who didn't go to Adepticon, Resin Beast had a much smaller bank of display cases. There were far fewer miniatures from a couple of different companies, but the restrictions on kind of what you were supposed to be aiming for in that competition were fewer restrictions, and so you could do a wider range of paint styles. You didn't have to worry about lore or anything like that. It's just there's the entire model range for, I want to say, Parabellum and Creature Caster, and there was one more, right? Beastarium. Yep. And so take your favorite model from any of those three companies, paint it up however you want, and put it in the case and see what happens. And the top placers were getting cash prizes. So it seemed like a good competition.
I was 8th place and I got a cash prize.
Really?
Yes.
Nice. Just, did you get like guacamole on that burrito that day, or did you?
Right, exactly. Well, no, it was I was actually surprised. It was a bit more than offline, I'll tell you, but
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. No, that's great. So, um, I'm actually excited to see if that competition grows in the next couple of years.
Mhm.
I'm thinking of
Oh
painting
yeah, we were
something up
both talking
just
about it.
yeah, yeah. I'd put something in the case just to make them have to get a larger case the year afterwards. Just to fill it up and try to keep pushing that forwards.
And
Um,
I interviewed Taylor the other day from Creature Caster, and
mhm.
we talked a lot about that. And they're actually going to be bringing in some more sponsors, and so there'll be more miniature lines that'll be available to it as well, and it'll probably increase the cash prizes as
Mhm.
well, which is kind of ridiculous and
Yeah,
amazing at the same time. You know,
yeah.
It-
That's a mixed bag in my opinion. It's like the talking about sour grapes. Like if there's actual money on the line, like I can feel it a different level of feel bads when there are car payments involved. Um,
absolutely, absolutely.
but at the same time, get some get more really good painters to submit works to that case. Competition is a good thing. Having two really premium painting competitions at the event, that's awesome.
Yeah, and I heard the Marvel one was pretty big this year too. They were pretty excited with their turnout.
They had a couple cases we went through.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they weren't bursting with entries. There was room in those cases, and I heard I should probably fact check this, but I heard that like one painter won most of the competitions just basically by chance. I think because they were doing a pretty good job of keeping the judges blind to who submitted things, and so because of that, there happened to be one really good painter putting entries in, and it happened to be that they won most of the categories. Whereas I think that there could have been a little more maybe just a little more politics in the picking of winners. Could have like diversified and got a couple other people in the top spot. But
Right. Well, I mean, they could
yeah,
just put in a rule that says you can only win one category. You know what I
true.
mean?
And
And that's yeah, yeah.
there's no perfect answer on any of this. Like
Agreed.
there are good and bad reasons for having cash prizes, good and bad reasons to have judges completely blind to who's putting entries in,
Right.
and all that stuff. But it was I'm glad there were at least three distinct competitions at Adepticon
Hmm.
this year. Hopefully, two of those continue to grow. Yeah, and maybe we'll see more too.
Yeah, I know. I already started my resin beast for next year because I wanted to do a diorama. Also the bonuses too. Not only did just for entering, they gave you like a goodie bag that had models and paints from a couple different companies and stuff. So I was like, damn! And as an honorable mention, I'm getting a cash prize. What the hell?
Heck yeah,
Yeah.
I'll take it.
yeah,
Golden what?
Right.
Demon who? You know, and you can't even eat. They're not even made of chocolate, right? So you can't even eat them when you're done. But yeah, I actually I'm a huge Colossus fan from the X-Men,
hmm
and I've been looking for somebody selling just a Colossus and not a sister in the box set, because I could justify paying $15 for Colossus, the model I want, but not $30 for half. You know what I'm saying? Like to me that was a
Well,
wasted $15.
the
And so,
way Marvel sells two miniatures in each box, is that what you're talking about?
oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then so I found somebody on eBay who was selling them and is selling them separately. So and I was like, all right, I'm gonna paint a Colossus from that, because that and Spider-Man are my two fave superheroes. So we'll see what I can do with non-metallic steel and laugh at myself.
I think I've had that dilemma too. So I'm not a huge Marvel person, but like I remember watching the X-Men cartoons when I was a kid and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And there've been a few times where I've been looking at the rack of Marvel minis, and being like, all right, if there's two of the right characters that I kind of recognize in the same box, I'll get it. And nope, it was always like, yeah, I kind of like that guy. Like, who's that? Who's his pal in the box? Like, I don't even want that in my pile of shame. Like, yeah.
Yes. Okay, good. Somebody else who thinks the same way I do. That's awesome.
Yeah.
It is a weird way to sell models, like, especially character-driven pieces. It's like, well, you want to buy the characters that you like. And maybe they're just like, well, pair them with that one, because that way we get rid of some of those. I don't know. It is a strange way to sell.
Yeah, and some of the groupings don't make any sense either. You're like, well, okay, I can see Colossus and his sister. I got that.
Mm-hmm.
There are patterns of them that you see, but some of them were just kind of random who was in the box, and you're like, at least if they could have put like two super popular, I could see like Spider-Man and Venom in the same box. That makes sense,
Right.
Wolverine and Sabretooth or whatever. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, so this I want to do a little bit differently now. I want to skip ahead a little bit because I love doing the lightning round, which is just kind of silly questions that I ask. And basically I'll ask them, and you what the first thing that pops to your head, you answer, okay? They're nothing serious. It's nothing serious. You will not be scandalized for the rest of your life. And so
how much do you make before taxes?
I think that the diciest one is how much for a kobold. Was that, that's the diciest question we'll get here.
Awesome.
We just set the price of kobolds to 5 apiece for all eternity.
Yeah.
Exactly. All right. So welcome to the lightning round. The first question is, Casey, most annoying part of the hobby?
Oh. Okay. I suppose, like, I do a lot of 3D printing, so I guess the mess of 3D printing is pretty annoying.
Brent,
I dislike it.
Trying to revitalize paint on your wet palette that's been there for a couple hours.
Nice. Excellent. Favorite color to paint, Brent?
I like green. I do like green. Hold on, I don't know if that's my final answer yet. Give me a second. You know what? I'm thinking I'll stick with green. Green's okay. Green's a good color.
All right, Casey.
I was gonna say green, but now I can't. So
Yep.
I'm gonna say red.
Nice. Casey, when's the last time you drank your paint water?
Actually, it's been a while. It's been a good long while, because I usually have the wet palette, and then the cup is far away, and I usually have like a nice big mug that has a straw in it.
Nice.
So I don't get them mixed up too often. I mean, I've come close, and I've definitely done it, but it's been probably at least a year, I'd say.
Okay. Brent?
Yeah. I've never drank my paint water. I've come very close to cleaning my brush and my drink, but I've never drank my paint water.
I've definitely cleaned my brush and my drink, yeah.
I'm glad I have not. I'm not asked the question because it was 3 hours ago.
No.
I get going. I'm listening to music or something. I'm not even paying attention. I've even drank it and gone, did I drink my paint water? I'm pretty sure I did. I'm not sure if I did or not. Damn.
Wasn't bad.
Who knew, right? All right. So Brent, we'll start with you. Most dreaded color to paint?
White.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go with black.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fair.
I guess technically those are incorrect answers because are white and black not really colored, right?
I mean, white is all color.
Right. No, that's why I'm just being.
Yeah. I know.
Let's just randomly insert Mike being a dickhead.
No, there's actually, I think metals, most metallics are on that list too.
Oh, guy, yeah. Amen, brother.
Yeah. I love painting like true metallic metals. That's one of my favorite things. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Are you a masochist?
Some days it's working out, and some days it's not. I don't know.
It depends on how you go about it, I think. If you're using an airbrush, for example, you can do some really cool modulation with the metallics, and with true metallics, it doesn't have to be anything specific. You can get in and paint like non-metallic metal on true metallics and get a really cool look, but it really depends. Like large exoskeletons are super easy with an airbrush to make look really cool in real metals.
Nice. I had a Space Marine Minotaurs that I was doing, and those are the only ones that I've ever liked the metal I painted, and it was all dry brushing, and I liked the worn look that the dry brushing did. But other than that, every other thing I put metal on, I'm like, God damn, that sucks.
Yeah, like straight metals on something with like a black wash, it's like that looks fine, but I think with a few tricks, like you can really push it, and it's not as hard as it seems after you've done it.
Nice. All right, so Brent, we'll end with this final question. Stranded on a desert island, only one paintbrush is allowed. What type of paintbrush? What size?
Walmart size 2.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
There's a particular multi-pack of synthetic brushes from Walmart that I really like. I do. I think Plaid is the manufacturer. I think it might be Folk Art or something like that.
Folk Art and Plaid I think are the same. Yeah.
And there's always like a couple multi-packs, and the one that's like $1 or $2.99 are not the ones you want, but like $3.99, like once you avoid the very lowest tier of Walmart synthetic brushes, like you go a tier up and they're fine. Yeah. No, there's a couple of brands of synthetic brushes that I don't mind, and I've used natural hair brushes and they're okay, but that mostly they just stress me out because they're more expensive. I'd rather have a 50-cent paintbrush. Yeah.
Fair enough. Casey, what about you?
My go-to for a while now has been the Winsor & Newton Series 7 size 1. Yeah, when I switched over to that brush, it legitimately changed the way that I approach painting, and I haven't looked back since.
Yeah, it's a different feel, and I usually don't. I started as a Raphael guy, and I kind of evolved in like looking at the price and availability and such, and switched mostly to Rosemary and Co. because they're a lot cheaper. But I finally found a synthetic sable that actually functions like a sable brush, the Heritage by Princeton. And they're not terribly expensive. They're a little more expensive, they're like $4 or $5 a brush. But I've been using this same set for 6 months now with I have four of them. Very little curl. I was like, wow, that's shocking, So it's you got to find your tools, right? The ones that work for you. It doesn't matter if you paint with a toothpick. If it works, right?
Yeah.
Excellent. So we're almost to the hour mark. So one brief thing that I wanted, it's kind of a Pandora's box of things, but so I am looking at getting a 3D printer, and I'm one hand excited about the prospect because like one of the classes I'm teaching at ReaperCon is doing tiny text on things. And so I was like, oh, I could print out a bunch of little books and there's my thing, lickety split. I got my class stuff. Don't even have to worry about it.
Yep.
But then the thought process of having to remove supports and cure, and because my number one annoying hobby thing is mold lines. They've been the bane in my competitions because I've missed them, and everybody has that story. But and so risk versus reward. I know you guys recently just did one on the podcast about wargaming, 3D printing, where we are now, and like how far we've come. What are your if somebody is looking to get into 3D printing, what would you say to them?
I mean, I do 3D print pretty often. I like to print out bits, things that fix other things, right? From that perspective, I think it's an invaluable tool because I can print an arm, I can print a head, and it doesn't take very long. And, because they're so small, the supports are small, they come off really easily. There's not a lot of, divots or pitting from those supports. So I've always found it to be incredibly useful. Printing full models is super hit and miss for me. Because like if you don't like mold lines, there's still going to be pits from supports on your models. And I know that, you can dial it in so precise that there's almost nothing and you can kind of sand them down. But that, there's always going to be a cleanup process. So mold lines or 3D printing, just kind of, 6 dozen, one half the other, whatever. It's a fun part of the hobby though. And it does lead to some interesting things because you have a larger range of things to choose from to either augment your models or just models in general that you can have to use in your games or to paint. So like even for the price of a normal printer, I think, even on Amazon, you can get some of these for $150 or something. That's not a huge investment, compared to some of the things that we buy in this hobby. And from that perspective,
sure.
I think it's worth doing, even if you're a little bit interested, because you're going to end up with some cool stuff. There's going to be some trial and error, but you get there eventually. And I think it's worth doing.
Yeah, I agree. Worth doing. At some point, you got to give it a try for sure. And I think it actually would be very helpful for making a whole lot of books to use in a painting class. I think that'd be a great use for it. So what we talked about, Casey and I, recently on our podcast, Paint Bravely, the podcast, was that, I mean, kind of most of these printers are made in like the same couple of factories, I think, in China. And so
yeah,
the difference
block
between a lot of these companies is pretty small. And there's a little bit of a difference between generations, but now if you're getting a pretty high resolution on the screen and they're using mono light, which is like more, the screen is more tuned towards the blue side of the spectrum instead of just straight like cell phone light.
Right.
That, yeah, like printers are pretty dang good. And especially the first couple of times you use them, like the first time you realize like, wow, this model was goo 3 hours ago.
Mm-hmm.
And now this is a real detailed model. And one of the advantages, there's no mold lines. A lot of times there's also no assembly. So for models, you need to cast those in a 2-part mold, and there are limits to the shapes that you can use. And for Space Marines, there's a reason why bolt guns have a solid barrel, and you need to go and drill out all the barrels. Like you can't. The only way to make a hole in the barrel is if you cast the gun as 2 separate parts.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are so many shapes that you cannot do with 2-part casting unless you cast like 5 pieces and glue them together. But on a 3D printer, I mean, it's ridiculous. Like I've been printing out dinosaur riders recently, and you can print dinosaur cavalry of somebody holding 2 weapons, riding a dinosaur. The dinosaur has all its claws out and everything. And that's a single piece that prints as one solid model. Whereas if you're going and making dinosaur cavalry or any cavalry from a model box, that's 10 bits that you're gluing together at least.
Yeah, it's at a minimum. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So there's definitely some really cool stuff about 3D printing. I think it's an awesome tool to have. Understanding that you need to have a room in your house or your garage or whatever where you're not going to be constantly breathing the fumes. You understand that the table you put it on is going to get sticky, and you need to be okay with that.
Uh-huh.
And again, they're all coming out of the same Chinese factory. My experience has been that printers work really well out of the box, and then all of a sudden something goes wrong, and there's a moment of panic, and there's searching of Reddit forums, and normally you can figure out what it is and like unscrew a piece and plug a wire back in or whatever. But if you did spend $150 or $500 on a printer and all of a sudden it's not working and you keep failing prints, that's a bad feeling. and so there's an element of understanding how to maintain and troubleshoot the instrument, which you got to be prepared for. But I think it's worthwhile just being like, oh wow, here's a mini that, like, I had an idea for a type of mini. I searched the internet. It turns out somebody already sculpted it. I was able to buy it and download the file from my mini factory for $4. And in a couple hours, I'm going to have it as a physical object. And not only am I going to have it as a physical object, if I want, I can scale it up 300% and have it as like a figurine, as like a Hummel. As, there's so much stuff you can do with it. And to kind of bring things back around, I am also teaching a mini painting class at SoonerCon in about 6 weeks. And Twin Goddess Miniatures, Adam at Twin Goddess Miniatures, sculpted me a cyberpunk kobold to be the object of that course. And
awesome.
A couple of days ago, I printed off 32 cyberpunk kobolds, and we got the supports set up so that it's pretty easy to clean up. And I don't like the bottom of the bases. The bottom of the bases are a little bit gnarly. But that's the mold lines of that mini essentially.
Right.
But hey, we got a lot of minis, exactly the mini we want for very reasonable price. And it's a good tool. There's
perfect,
cons, but it's a good tool.
Yeah, email me. Can you email me the links for SoonerCon too? Because we'll put that in the show notes.
Sure.
Because you just never know. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
The running joke is all 11 of our listeners. Maybe one of them lives in Oklahoma.
There you go.
All 11 of them. Well, awesome. Thank you guys. That's good. And I used to ask people what miniature they wanted to see that hadn't been made yet. And I always gave Quicksilver from Silverhawks, the 80s TV show, as an answer. And then Sam went, dude, do a search. It's out there. And I'm literally interviewing Sam, and I'm like, Sam Lenz, and I'm like, you got to be shitting me. And like, literally, it was right there. Somebody had done it. Before the interview was over, I had already bought the STL and sent it to somebody and like paid somebody to print it for me. It's like, that's happening. So I'm actually, I don't know if you guys see, I'm wearing a Thundercat shirt right now.
There you go.
80s TV child,
Yeah.
Definitely Lion-O is somewhere in my hit list, but I haven't seen them. I need to find a different model because Steven Garcia's is so good that I don't know if you've seen his Lion-O, but it's like, wow. Every time if I print that model and try to paint it, all I'm going to see in my head is how it's not as good as his.
Right.
And not in a bad way, not in like a self-deprecation way, just that was exceptionally painted. You know what I mean? Like it would be me, like, I don't know, painting that Blaine, the guy from World of Warcraft that Eric Swinson won the Mont Sansevino with. Like, how could you not, like, in your head go, yeah, that guy did that one. Right, leave that alone.
Are there good World of Warcraft minis? Is that?
I believe there are some out there. I know that the two that Eric did, like for Mont Sansevino a couple years ago, and the one that he won Best in Show with for Admonte were by Joaquin Polosis.
Okay.
They're one-offs. And supposedly, I guess he's got more one-offs from Joaquin in his case waiting to be painted too. So, but yeah, those two, there was an orc, or I guess it was an orc, which is kind of before that, not a lot of people were doing the cast shadows in their paintings. And then the next year was when he did the Blaine Redfoot, I think it is.
I'm sure I've seen
Bloodhoof.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. It was the Bloodhoof.
Bloodhoofs. There you go. Blaine Bloodhoof.
Right.
Thank you. Yes, I don't know World of Warcraft. My part of my nerd card has been taken away today. But yeah. But so I used to ask a question. Now I go with just the. So the motto of the podcast is better, braver, happier painters. the original motto was "We suck at painting, so you don't have to," but we tried to be positive. And so I asked the guests, what advice can you give our listeners as they continue their journeys?
Paint models. Yeah, paint models you want to paint and have fun with it.
That's not bad.
Yeah.
That's not bad. I mean, I'll default to our podcast a little bit, but painting bravely is definitely something that we can get behind. You know, like if it sounds like it's gonna be cool, you don't know how to do it, just do it anyways. Go for it. Just be brave about it and see what happens. Because the worst comes to worst, you can strip the model down, or you can just paint another one,
or sell it to you on eBay.
That's
go.
really what I'm after. You know, just really pushing the brave angle so that everybody just sells on eBay, and then I can clean up. Yeah.
Excellent. Unlimited content.
Yes. Give me more of those meme Marines. Yes.
So, gentlemen, normally I ask people to tell where to find you, but I know everybody already knows that, and I'm going to put it in the show notes. Goobertown Hobbies on YouTube, eBay Miniature Rescues on YouTube, Painting Bravely on all the podcast catchers out there. What about your? Do you guys have separate Instagrams that you would like people to follow?
Yeah, the same names, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
perfect.
same names. Yeah.
Same names. Perfect. And I know that because we just followed each other right before the podcast, Brent.
Wonderful.
Excellent. Gentlemen, what an honor it's been to have you guys on, and a lovely conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Happy to be here. This is great.
Yeah.
Dan and I would like to thank Brent from Goobertown Hobbies and Casey from eBay Miniature Rescues for joining us. Together they formed the podcast called Painting Bravely, and you can check that out wherever you get your podcasts. You can also check them out on their respective YouTube channels as well as on Instagram. We'll have links in the show notes. Like, subscribe, or follow wherever you get your podcasts. And if you could leave us a good review, that would really help the show out. Additionally, you can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Listening to Paint Dry, as well as on Twitter at Dry Listening. We'd love to hear from you. You can email us at listeningtopaintdry@gmail.com. Let us know what you're working on, how things are going, and what cons you're going to this year. Take a moment and give a shout out to our current Patreons: Lee, Andrew, Michael, Carolyn, Cannibal Noises, Raggy Paints, and Christopher. Thank you guys so much for helping make all this possible, especially the painting awards. Those things are coming down the pipe, and we're really excited. It's with the sculptor right now. I can't wait to show you what the sculptor comes up with based on the sketch that I kind of threw out there on the Patreon and the Discord. Thank you again for the support, and if you'd like to join them, please check us out on Patreon. You can also check the Linktree link in the show notes for all of our relevant links. With that being said, it doesn't matter how much a kobold costs. You can always become a better, braver, happier painter. Until next time. Listening to Paint Dry with Mike and Dan is a production of LTPTWMD. All rights reserved. No portion of this recording may be used without the express written consent of the host. The music is Death by a Thousand Questions by Springtide. Download from the Free Music Archive on a non-commercial attribution share-alike basis. All views and opinions expressed in the show are solely the views and opinions of the person who said them. All celebrity voices, if any, were impersonated and done so poorly.